Hello, my name is Santiago Suart, and today I'm going to be talking about the things I have learned in this class. In terms of knowledge, how I arrived at the beginning of this virtual course. As a student myself, the first day I started this course, I started with a lot of questions. One of the things I immediately did was look at the themes we were going to be seeing. In the first week, as I saw the themes, I had high expectations, since most of this theme talks about one of my favorite things to debate, which is how society works. And after seeing themes like witch hunts, gender issues, slavery, and even capitalism, I knew my objectives were to take out my beliefs and to try to learn more about the story of the impact of our society has had on this problem. After advancing a few weeks, as a student, because of what I have learned in the course, I have changed in many ways. While learning about the history of every theme, something happened because I wanted to learn more, but more specifically about the themes I never really experienced. Because while learning about things like sexual identity is important since it's a big part of my life, I kind of know a little bit more of that theme. But the first theme I loved to learn more about was slavery as a systematic oppression. We learned that they defended slavery with religion, past history, and way more dark things. Defenders of slavery argued that slavery had existed through history and that was a natural state of mankind. The Greeks had slaves, the Romans had slaves, and the English had slavery until very recently, by the Southern Argument for Slavery, 2025. These types of arguments were normal, and learning about how society tried to justify it was normal is so hard to see. Another thing we saw advancing in the second week was learning about sexism and how it's something that even when we don't realize it's being encouraged, even from when we are babies, I hadn't really thought about that many effects it had on so many people. Sex stereotyping can limit the development of the natural talents and abilities of boys and girls, women and men, their educational and professional experiences, as well as life opportunities in general by combating gender stereotypes and sexism 2016. Seeing in the reading how much impact things like this have on building kids and how it really changed my perspective on how I want to raise my children, but not only how I see it needs to change, if not the system that we have that keeps letting sexist things happen. And my spaces in the future. As a student, I am aware of the gender perspective of social issues and of the need to preserve human rights. As I am studying engineering, I think I don't have that much effect on changing the thing that is most important, which is the system that we have. Even though I can change that, I have learned that even small things like the workplace or school, I have to start doing things that don't let problems like sexism or racism or other things take place. In terms of prejudices and stereotypes, I arrived at this course, and I think I came to this course of having some prejudice about the type of thing we were going to be learning. I thought we were going to be only focusing on current problems about gender, and I have my ideas on how women and men have almost the same opportunities nowadays, and I thought it was something that was very close to being accomplished. I thought that feminism was good and that it was a good way to be heard because it's a movement that only wants equality and it's not about superiority, if not to have equal opportunities. After completing some of the sessions and activities on my virtual course, my prejudice and stereotypes that I had really changed with this class. They changed because I learned about the history and real effects of these problems, about sexism and about sexism. Hostile sexism is dangerous. According to 2019 research, it is a risk factor for sexual harassment and gender-based violence. These types of effects I didn't have in my mind when I have prejudice. I now believe things need to change and men and women to have the same opportunities, and it's not about the system that the world has. To this decision making remains widely dominated by men, as they make up 64% of elected local officials, 73% of parliamentarians, 77% of cabinet ministers, and about 90% of heads of governments and heads of state. It is estimated that at the current pace, it will take another 162 years to close the gender gap in political empowerment by e-discussions on gender norms in politics, International Idea 2023. Only by seeing this, we can understand the way the system is not in women's favor. Despite legal frameworks set up across the EU to prevent discrimination and promote equality, women are still underrepresented in decision-making roles, left out of certain sectors of the economy, primarily responsible for unpaid care work, paid less than men, and disproportionately subject to gender-based violence, by What is Sexism 2020. Informing myself with this lecture has taught me the reality of this unjust situation, which is that there are not the same opportunities for men and women. And my space in the future. In my future to start, I will start to inform myself before having a decision about the theme that is very important. That theme will follow every place I go. To understand school and work life. Even with family, I will start to understand that not everyone is born with the same privilege. And we need to change that. Concepts like these are important to change how society is, to change the world and the system we need to understand. The history and the reality of these problems. Thank you very much.